You have found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, me and Kev are going to be breaking down training camp day 2 for the Chicago Bulls, as well as Manas Busilis. Is he the most athletic Bull player? We'll talk about all that, plus a player was waived, and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And I'm joined today by the host of Chicago White Sox and Chicago Cubs Central. Big Kev's in the building. What's going on, Kev?
What's the word, gang? Good to be back.
Absolutely, man. Always glad to have you. Already know, man. And today's episode, by the way, is brought to you guys by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's go ahead and get started ourselves, Big Kev, man. Training camp is going on for the Chicago Bulls. There's a lot of things and details to come out. There was one really interesting one that I wanted to get your thought on here to start off with, and that is we know that the Bulls are trying to play a faster style. They're trying to establish a more up-tempo system, and to do that, Josh Giddey revealed yesterday that the Bulls have actually been playing with a 14-second shot clock in practice up until this point to establish those quicker movements, those quicker decisions, things like that. How do you feel about that method being used to establish and start getting in place this faster offense the Bulls want to play?
That's phenomenal. That's incredible. That's a good way to have these guys play with the type of urgency and speed that the coaching staff want them to play with. The last 2 seasons, all of us, especially over on the Shot Bulls podcast with C-Dub and Bobby, have been screaming, run, run, run. And they just didn't have the personnel to do it. 2 out of their big 3 were just slow pace players with Vooch and DeRozan. So yeah, I'm expecting to see it, and I think this is a great way to get it established. There's nothing I can say bad about this. I mean, except maybe it could create some rushed shot attempts and so on and so forth. But besides that, if you're trying to just implement the new system, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's really good, especially with basically only 1 week of training camp. This isn't like the NFL where you got 3-4 weeks of training camp before the season starts. Like you get 1 week of training camp, you get a week of preseason, and then you there. It's the season. We in live games. So I think this is a really smart decision by Billy Donovan. For Billy Donovan, a coach who the last 2 media days prior to this one has talked about wanting to play faster, and we've still been bottom of the league in pace. Now we have more of the personnel. It's still not a perfect roster to play fast. You still got Nikola Vucevic there, who's projected to be the starting center, but you still have a lot more roster from top to bottom. When you go even look at the bench with Ayo and Manas Busilis and Julian and Dalen Terry, Jalen Smith as well. A lot of these guys could thrive in an up-tempo offense, but that breeds this question, Kev, and I know I just alluded to it a little bit. How fast can the Bulls realistically play with Nikola Vucevic still as their starting center?
We saw everybody by now, all Bulls fans have seen the clip where Lonzo Ball threw the oop to Manas Busilis, and everybody was paying attention to that. What I saw was Vooch being a defensive liability. He's the one that got dunked on. Like, I was like, wow. I mean, good job for the young fella, showing his athleticism, and good job for Lonzo Ball being able to find him. But the reason why he was open for that oop was Vucevic. He's a liability, man. He's slow. Obviously, we need him, to get rebounds, get his double-double, so on and so forth. But he's basically a relic from a bygone era of the NBA where big men are the ones that were the focal points, and the game was slow. It wasn't a game of pace. You only saw teams scoring 80, 90 points a game. Now, if you're not averaging 110 to 115, you're not really relevant in the NBA in terms of offense. Vooch is going to be traded. He's going to be traded. I'm not sure to where, but he's going to be out of here before January. He's because you just can't really. He's going to get outrun. You're going to see the camera panning back to see Vooch trying to catch up with the team. It's just going to be one of those situations. Now, in the half-court sets, of course, he's going to be fine because that's where he thrives, in the pick and roll, pick and pop situation. And honestly, as quiet as it's kept, with DeRozan gone, taking up a lot of the spots that Vucevic likes to occupy himself, he might benefit from that. But that's in the half-court sets. when they get out in the run off rebounds, especially with Lonzo Ball playing 1 out of every 3 games, I'm assuming that's what he's going to be out there trying to push the pace, get that hockey assist. Vooch is going to be a liability in that regard.
Yeah, and while Vooch is a solid passer, and I could see him helping establish some half court, because you still got to play in the half court, right? Like, because everything you're not going to be able. We're not playing 70 seconds or less out there, so you still have to establish something in the half court. But I'd say this, even in the half court, like Vooch isn't a good 3-point shooter. We've seen that. We don't want him to do that. He's basically at the rim in the mid range, which may be a little bit more open to him now with DeMar DeRozan being there. But like to the point that you said, every strength of Nikola Vucevic starts benefiting this team less and less the more young, the more athletic this team goes. And it's just an unfortunate thing. And so I do agree with you that at some point I do see Nikola Vucevic being moved, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Man. And let's clarify. Nobody's saying Vooch isn't a good player. I see my boy Shea having his normal meltdown.
He starts shaking a little.
But the reality is, in terms of the style of play that this team wants to play with, he just doesn't fit in. That doesn't mean he's not a good player. And like we just said, in the half court sets, he's going to benefit from that. But in terms of getting out and running, he just can't do it. It's just an ability thing there, a skill set thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just what it comes down to. Now, let's get to some of the other tidbits about training camp. So, Lonzo Ball in contact practice, second day in a row. They said they wanted to see how he reacted after day 1 of being in contact before they made a determination. He was able to have his second straight day of contact when it comes down to it. How hopeful are you? And it's not about the output. We're not going to get into like stats or what we want to see him do, but are you now more hopeful than what you were before training camp that Lonzo Ball will be able to play at the beginning of the season?
I knew he was going to play at the beginning of the season because it's a contract year. He has to. He's on display for the rest of the NBA. Like he knows that his basketball career is in jeopardy in terms of playing for the big guys, because he can go overseas and so on and so forth. But he wants to get another contract, a prove-it year here, maybe a 1-year contract somewhere else before he can sign perhaps the last big contract of his career, because he's only 25. So it's not like he's a dead body in that regard, but he knows that he has to go out there and prove it in order to earn a spot on not only on this roster, but any other roster in the NBA. So I knew he was going to push himself to go out there and play, because regardless of how his body feels, he has to show how he has adjusted to the surgeries and so on and so forth. And he said it himself, IQ and know-how is really going to get him through. And unfortunately for him, these are the type of things that people in their mid-30s start to think about, trying to adjust their game. We saw Mike do it, where he just stopped being the super high flyer and just adjust to the fadeaway. So we're going to see what
Kobe
Lonzo
with
Ball
the mid-range.
Exactly. So Lonzo Ball is it's not going to be what it was. Like it wasn't like he was uber athletic to begin with. Like he wasn't out there just catching bodies. So he'll show what he has left in the tank. And I'm rooting for the young fella at the end of the day. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, and we'll see what comes along with it, man. I at the end of the day, like you said, I just want to see Lonzo be able to, like, this is just an establishing season to show that, hey, I'm not done. Don't expect a whole lot of him. He's not going to play back-to-backs. He's not going to play a whole bunch of minutes, but that doesn't mean he still can't help this team. And another aspect of having Lonzo Ball on this team that I really like for the Bulls is the mentorship part of it, and he's already talked about embracing that.
Oh, yeah. I love it, especially for the young guys. Especially for Kobe White, even Kobe White and Lonzo they're dynamic in terms of the backcourt. They're the backcourt now with Caruso gone, right? So I'm expecting him to be able to help Kobe White be a little bit better of a point guard as well, especially with Josh Giddey probably not starting the season. I'm not sure what the severity of his injury is.
He's going to be starting. So he did clarify that to say that if it was playoffs today, he'd be able to go. It's more just a precautionary thing they're doing with him.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm excited, especially for the younger guys. Your Dalen Terry's, your Julian Phillips. Not even just at the point guard position, but just from a professional standpoint. We already know that's what Billy Donovan likes to do with these young guys anyway, have them get ready for game day, have them go to the hotels and so on and so forth. They go up and down to the G League. We're going to talk about Modest in a second, so that's probably what his first year is going to be like. But I'm excited to see what Lonzo Ball brings in terms of mentorship, in terms of leadership on the bench as well, because most of the time these last 2.5 years, he hasn't really even been there because he's not suited up, So it's going to be good to see him just on the bench, and especially with him being on the active roster, right? Because he's not going to have to just watch from afar. He's just going to be on the bench in a suit every other game or so, So it's going to be cool to see the coaching aspect of it as well. And that could also be another reason why he wants to be out there, so he can show what he can do after his NBA careers also.
That's a fact. That's a fact. All right, we're going to continue. There's another topic within training camp that we're going to get into that, in the next segment. Then we're going to talk about Modest Bucilis, and I would assume we're calling him the most athletic bull. But before we get into that, got to get to a message from one of our sponsors, and that's FanDuel. I've been telling you guys all summer about FanDuel and how it's trying to help you, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I've told you guys before how much of a benefit that is for my betting people out there, that you're able to look at everything all on one page. You don't have to pull up ESPN. You don't have to pull up FSN. You don't have to pull up a bunch of other places. You can get everything all on one page to inform yourself before you place your bets over on FanDuel. A lot of you guys talking about parlays. FanDuel helps you with that as well. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Some of y'all broke and still trying to bet. FanDuel trying to help that make a little bit more sense for y'all with the $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. Again, go to FanDuel.com to take advantage of the one page, everything on the same page. You can do your betting, get your stats, and the $200 in bonus bets guarantee. You just got to go to FanDuel.com and tell them Locked On Bulls sent you. Tell them, I've been trying to help broke people all summer, Kev. All summer, bro.
You say some of y'all broke and still trying to bet. That's hilarious. I don't gamble myself personally. I'd rather just buy a bottle with that money. But
I don't bet.
But at the end of the day, if I were a gambling man, I would take the over on the Bulls over under. I would take the over for sure.
Okay. All right. I see that. We'll see how that works out.
They're not going to be over by much. But the 28.5, what is it, 27.5?
Yeah, 27.5 on some sites, 28.5 on others. So
yeah, they can win 29 games.
Yeah.
Go ahead and drop that 50 on the Bulls.
Oh, with that said, Kev, I said we got one more topic that I did want to talk about. So we talked about the Bulls' current starting center in Nikola Vucevic. I want to talk about some of the details that Jalen Smith talked about in training camp today, saying that his emphasis is going to be running the floor hard, defensive versatility, and no matter what role he has. But he did point out the fact that coming to the Bulls was an easy choice because of the opportunity and the fit. How do you see Jalen Smith fitting in? There was that rumor earlier in the summer, not really rumor. It was a report that Jalen Smith was promised an opportunity to win the starting position. But I think outside of that, whether he starts or not, Jalen Smith could play a lot of minutes for this Bulls, and being able to play the 4, being able to play the 5, next to P. Will, next to Vooch. What do you think about Jalen Smith's role coming into the season?
Yeah, he's going to have a big role to play, especially if he stays healthy. We already know the P. Will saga up and down in terms of his health. You already know that Vucevic is going to be in and out of the lineup depending on the matchups as well, in terms of like during the game, not necessarily playing games, but during the game. He's going to be a defensive liability in certain aspects. I see the comments over here saying that maybe Jalen Smith isn't an upgrade. It's not about whether.
We got breaking news.
What's that?
We got breaking news. This is actually so they waived Marcus Domask yesterday. Mm-hmm. They just signed Josh Primo, a former 12th pick in 2021.
Josh Primo. Let me look him up. Let's see what he but yeah, as far as Jalen Smith is concerned, I believe that he's going to be pretty good. Like, I don't expect him to be an upgrade in terms of Vucevic, so to speak, but I expect him to be different. And that's all we're looking for, because look at last season or the last couple of seasons with Andre Drummond. Nobody by any stretch of their imagination is going to say that Andre Drummond is a better player than Vucevic, but he did do some things better than Vucevic, especially rebounding and defending the pick and roll. So I expect Jalen Smith to come in and fill in that Drummond type of role, but also provide a stretch the floor type mentality as well, because he can shoot the 3. So I'm not expecting him to just come in and be a throw-in or not earn minutes. He's going to earn minutes, whether it's at the 4 or the 5.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart thing that AK did in signing Jalen Smith here is the versatility. Like you want players off your bench that can play multiple positions, and the Bulls have 3 of those, really more. But Ayo Dosunmu, any guard position, and he played some small forward last year. Jalen Smith, the 4 or the 5. Modest Bucelis can play the 3 or the 4, right? And then you still got Julian Phillips, Torrey Craig. All these guys can play multiple positions. That's what you want to see on a bench, is that versatility, depending on what the matchup is and what you may need game to game. I think that's a really smart decision.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those situations where it remains to be seen, right?
Mhm.
Some of us are looking at his time with the Pacers, but he was behind Miles Turner. They played a fast-paced game where defense wasn't even a thought process for that team. I'm just feeling like this young man has an opportunity to show it, improve, and he wants to come out here and do it. He's saying all the right things. We're just gonna see if he can do it on the court. Why do we need another guard? We just picked up another guard.
Yeah, keep in mind it's an Exhibit 10 deal. Anytime these Exhibit 10 deals happen, I always think this got to be more for G League. Because keep in mind, when you sign somebody to an Exhibit 10 deal, it gets them extra money if they end up signing a G League contract with you. So I got to think that is that, because one thing we have a lot on our G League team is forwards. We don't have a lot of guards on our G League team, so maybe that's it. I
Is
don't know.
Shay, is that true?
What did he say?
That's
Oh,
wild.
why Josh Primo got off the team? What? Yeah. Josh Primo is that guy. That is
Oh
Josh
my
Primo. That's
God.
why the Spurs moved away from him. But Josh
He was
Primo was a
young. What was
talent.
he like?
He was a guy that people thought very highly of, and they were actually surprised when the San Antonio Spurs just waived him, because he's still only 21 years
That's
old.
what I was about to say. He had to be like 17, 18. That kind of makes sense if that's what was happening. Like, these guys are hyperactive and they got access. So it is what it is. When that moment hit, when that feeling hit, baby.
That's crazy. First of all, that's crazy that you said that out loud. Secondly, wow. Wow. That's great. And he may play some center here for the Chicago Bulls. You never know.
Right.
But with that said, let's get into this, man. So Ayo Dosunmu was interviewed yesterday, and he asked about Modest Bucelis. And, hey, first of all, we got Josh Giddey and Josh Primo on the same team.
That's
For
another
both
wow.
what they've been known.
Wow.
Okay. Hide your kids, hide your wife. With that said, Ayo Dosunmu said that Modest Bucelis may be the most athletic Bull, and he even doubled down. He was like, yeah, I mean, Zach won 2 slam dunk championships, and Julian Phillips is up there too. But he said, he ended it by saying, y'all gonna see. Now, athleticism doesn't necessarily, because Tyrese Thomas was one of the most athletic players in that draft. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. But how do you feel about Modest Bucelis turning heads already in training camp with his athleticism?
First, I'm glad that he clarified that by saying that Zach LaVine was already eliminated from the conversation. You don't even got to mention him, because obviously Zach LaVine is the most athletic player on this team.
No, that's not what he said. He said when he asked more than Zach, he doubled down.
Did he?
Yes.
Because when I was reading it, I thought he clarified it and said that it's our foregone conclusion. But maybe I misread that.
Your audio just took a bad dive, my boy.
Am I back? Am I good?
Yeah, you good now. Whoa, I don't know what happened there.
You know what that was? That was old girl trying to get up in my business.
Oh, okay.
But at the end of the day, I don't know. I can't say that. I mean, I know what Matas brings. I know that he's trying to dunk on people every single time. But athleticism is more than just dunking, right?
That's true.
It's about how you get to your spots. It's about the Euro step. It's about your rebound and your blocks, so on and so forth. Can you play defense as well? Let's see how athletic you are seriously. Like, dunking is one thing, but you got to show athleticism in more than just one way. And I know he can do it. He's a young kid. He's very, very, very raw, as Billy Donovan has been quoted on saying about him. So I expect him to prove it. He's going to be up and down on his roster. I know everybody want to see him be on a big roster, all 82 games, but he's going to have to get some run. And if there's not many injuries to Pat Williams and so on and so forth, he's going to be playing some G League games this year as well. And then we're going to see how athletic he really is down there in the G League as well, because he's going to get way more opportunities on the affiliate. But as far as being on the big roster, he's going to have to prove it to me. You got to show me.
And I mean, I think I get it, and I understand why a lot of people say that, and they don't know how much Josh Giddey's going to play. But I don't know. Like Julian Phillips went down to the G League. He was down there for like 2 weeks before they realized, hey, you're too good for this level of competition. I think we can see the similar thing with Modest Bucilis. And keep in mind too, with this Bulls team going younger, like yeah, Julian Phillips, Torrey Craig, they could be ahead of him on the depth chart, and we'll see what happens there. I guess it remains to be seen. I don't know, bro. Like it can go either way. But I hope I should say is that he shows such an ability that he's not down there long if he is.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as his athleticism is concerned, we saw it in the summer league. We've seen it so far in training camp in terms of catching oops. I just want to see it in the all-around aspect because I do think people get pigeonholed into looking at the dunks and thinking that's all athleticism is. So I want to see some finesse too. You can't just try to catch bodies every single time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to have some finesse to it, right? You got to have skill because athleticism can be cool your rookie year. I can see him getting by on raw athleticism his whole entire rookie year, but you got to show more than that as it goes on. You got to add to that. I would even say it within the season, month to month. That's the growth I'm looking for from Modest Bucilis.
Absolutely.
November to December to January. How does he start refining some of those skills? I think that's hugely important for him.
Because would you say that Kyrie Irving is athletic? Because I would. Just based on how he has body control is a big part of athleticism.
Absolutely.
So, catching that body is cool, but can you adjust mid-air and still make the basket? So that's what I want to see. Obviously, he's only 19, but as his career progresses, as this season progresses, I want to see that athleticism honed into like true skill.
I completely agree with you. No arguments there at all from me, Kev. Next up, though, we're going to get into the Bulls waiving Marcus Domask and apparently signing Josh Primo as well. But first, we're going to take a brief break. Very, 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 very brief there because, yeah. No ad read on that one. With that said, Kev, man, the Bulls waived Marcus Domask out of Illinois. This is a guy that a lot of Bulls fans wondered why he was even on the training camp roster. He looked very bad in summer league. And I guess maybe the Bulls are hoping that maybe there was still something to uncover there with Marcus Domask. But 2 days into training camp, they decided to cut him. He's gone. And now we find out today that they also have signed Josh Primo to an Exhibit 10 deal, basically the same deal that Marcus Domask was on. Hey, how do you feel about them waiving Marcus Domask there, Kev?
So when they did waive him, I just assumed that they were going to put him on the G League roster, which I guess it could still
They
happen.
still could because he still would get because he did show up to camp. He still gets that bonus money. Basically, is what
I just thought it was pretty funny because just yesterday they posted him on the site from Illini to Chicago Bulls, and I thought that was dope for him. And at the same time, we just got too many guards.
A lot of guards.
Yeah, it's like there's no spot on the roster for him. I like what I saw from him last season as a senior with the Fighting Illini, winning the Big Ten tournament, going to the Elite Eight, and then getting completely housed by UConn, the eventual national champions. Right? Then UConn win.
Yeah.
Again. So I just don't see where he fits on the roster though. Like cutting him, it doesn't really make a difference. But as far as the G League is concerned, he'll get some tick, he'll get some run, and maybe he'll find himself on the Miami Heat sometime in the future.
I mean, this is a guy who came into and he was drawing Max Strus comparisons. Like he could be that type of guy that goes up through the G League. And it is a little bit shocking, not a huge shocking that he doesn't make it even through like the first 4 days of training camp. But I mean, at the end of the day, if the Bulls say, hey, we've seen enough, you're a G League player, we're going to have you on our G League roster. Let's bring somebody else in here that we want to take another couple of days look at or whatever. Cool. I mean, I don't understand another guard. Like I said, outside of just them needing maybe more guards for the G League team. But, I mean, that's case the point when it comes to the Chicago Bulls. We're going to always have guards. That just is what it is at this point.
I mean, like, I like Joshua Primo from what I've seen in the last few seconds of looking him up. Even as a young cat on the San Antonio Spurs, he put the ball in the basket in the limited minutes that he did get. My man was averaging 5 points as a rookie, 5.8 points in 16 games played, 19.3 minutes, or 16 started. So he started 16 games in 2021, 2022. So that means he was 18 as a starter in the NBA. And then he went up and put up 7 points a game in 4 games in 2022, 2023. I guess he got hurt after that though. But what jumps off the page for me, Haize, is the fact that he averaged 3.3 rebounds and 4.5 assists at that size. And as a young man, in that 4-game stretch for the San Antonio Spurs. So even if he's a G League guy, that the Bulls are just giving him an opportunity, and he deserves it as a first round pick and a young man that just had
if he had better self-control, he would have still been on the Spurs. But the way, and I talked about this a little bit over on Central last night, is that I like what the Bulls have done here. The Bulls have not had first round picks, consistently, right? They've had some, but they haven't had a lot of first round picks. What the Bulls have done in adding Josh Giddey, who was a top 10 pick, if I'm not mistaken, right? Jalen Smith, who was a top 10 pick. You go out and get THT, you get Kenny Lofton Jr., you bring in EJ Liddell. You're bringing in a lot of players that are still young, but have promise, but have shown a little bit of something, right? Now you bring in Josh Primo as well, the former top 12 pick as well. So basically what the Bulls have done, when you look at some of the acquisitions that they've made, they've added first round picks, they've added second round picks. They basically have, in a way, recouped some potential that they've lost in what they had to give up to bring DeMar here and what they had to give up to bring Vooch here, to take a look at some of these guys to see if they can turn into something. And I'm not mad at that.
You know what? That's a pretty keen observation, to be 100, because we haven't had many picks over the last few seasons, with the exception of Patrick Williams and now Montes Buzelis. So in the first round, at least. So I like it. And then, of course, Dalen Terry was a first round pick as well. So I like it, though, man. I'm not mad at AK for this, because there's a lot of reasons to be mad at the front office for the Chicago Bulls and how they've handled managing this roster. But at least they are trying to double back and figure out how to get some people that they probably evaluated back when I know they evaluated EJ Liddell back when he was in the draft at Ohio State. So I'm glad they get a chance to get looks at these guys that they probably wanted to draft 2, 3, 4 seasons ago.
That's a fact. That's a fact. We'll see what comes about it, man. Any last thoughts, Kev, before we get up out of here?
Man, it's preseason is starting. The Bulls first preseason game is Tuesday. The NBA first preseason game starts tomorrow morning out in Abu Dhabi. So it's gonna be fun, man. Basketball season is on the horizon. Baseball season is in playoff form. So if you guys already follow Chicago White Sox and Cubs Central, we appreciate you guys for that. But come on over to NBA Central with the whole gang, man. We got different guys popping in and out throughout the week. You'll get to see everybody that you rock with from the Chi-Town Sports Central team, from myself, Steve-O Speaks, C-Dub, Bobby, and Haize, of course, and JB coming in too. So I love it, man. I'm excited to talk NBA just in general. Of course, I love the Bulls, but basketball is definitely my first love.
That's a fact. That's a fact, man. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Y'all make sure I go and support Big Kev over at Chicago White Sox and Cubs Central. Especially, he's been killing it over there. The dude's been covering the White Sox for 2 years. 2 historical losing seasons. Give my dude some love, man, because he's been stressed. He's been stressed. He's been stressed. I'll be over on White Sox Central a little bit more next season as well. I'm going to go ahead and make that commitment as well. So you'll be seeing me over there a little bit more. I get to flash all my White Sox gear because it's the one team nobody sees me in outside my kids. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys go and support Big Kev. You can follow us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow myself at CEO Haize. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and making Locked On Bulls your first listen and or view every single day. Now go and check out Locked On NBA, where the Locked On NBA experts are breaking down the NBA 7 days a week, especially with the season starting back. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us for that one. But we out. We'll see you guys tomorrow with the Cognac Boys tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Let's go.